everybody, it's Mrs. Peachy from your WCA Earth Science class, and I am doing a kind of follow-up video here to your Glacial landscape portfolio because there's a number of you who are still struggling to figure out what glacier landscape corresponds to which letter on the topographic map that you're given. And so if you watch the previous video, that one's actually going to be going through the different types of landscapes, and we walk through like a PowerPoint presentation where I show you what the landscape looks like in a photograph, and then we kind of look at how that corresponds to the topographic map. But now let's kind of go a step further and actually just look at the map itself and the letters that you have to find out what they are, and hopefully that'll help a little bit because it can be exceptionally confusing. The thing to really kind of take into consideration is that anything that you are trying to label or provide a name for on this map has to have a letter pointing to it. So when we look at the map overall, we'll see letters A through E. I'm pointing to my screen like you can see my finger. A is here, right? And then B refers to these three different kind of, I guess, bends here. C is kind of pointing to this peak and this peak or ridge area. D is pointing to this little lake here and this little lake here, and also kind of referring you to the circular or semicircular area at the top of the mountain. E is actually pointing to this semicircular structure that is at the bottom or back of Turquoise Lake. And A kind of is just looking at the shape of the valley, the river valley in general. So that's kind of what things are pointing to. The other thing to remember is that on my website, when you click on Earth Science A and you scroll down to Glacier Lab here, and it says larger view of book map. This is hopefully going to help you get a clear image so that you can actually see some of these things. I know that they are, blurry and small, and so this is just a blown up map. So what we need to do is look at the questions in the book and then refer to the map to see if we can then determine which features the map is talking about. Not the right. Alright, I gotta find the textbook again. Where are you? I don't know. So we're just gonna click on the link again, open it back up. Alright, so the first question says, following the line A on the map, sketch a topographic profile of the Lake Fork Valley onto the grid above. Now remember, I also mentioned that in the actual lab, it gives you this information. So even on this page here, if you look, it tells you the elevations from south to north. So you don't have to even have those lines, those elevation lines, contour lines, something that you can see, because I know that the numbers are super small and blurry and you can't see them. You just use the numbers that are given right on the screen here, and that's going to tell you where to put the remainder dots. There should be a few more dots that go here so that you can make this curve. Most of you did do that part correctly. Jiminy Christmas. I can't seem to keep losing the textbook. Nope. Oh, here it is. Okay. So then it says basically, it says, how can you tell from your profile the valley was formed by a glacier? Remember that the distinction between a valley formed by a glacier and a valley formed by a river is that a glacial valley will be U-shaped, kind of a curve, and a river valley is going to be V-shaped, very sharp. So obviously from this information we would expect that this is a U-shaped curve on the graph. Question 3 says, was the valley shaped by a continental ice sheet or by a valley glacier? The fact that it's a valley probably should be somewhat, I guess, of a giveaway here that it's a valley glacier, but remember that a continental glacier would be kind of spreading outwards in all directions and not coming down the topography of the terrain. So here, because it's a mountain and we have glaciers that form high in the mountains and work their way down through these kind of meltways, these valleys to the lower elevations, it would be considered a valley or alpine glacier. Use the map to describe the direction the glacier flowed through this valley. How can you tell? So let's look at the map. We know that this is our end point here at Turquoise Lake because this is a moraine, letter E, in that semicircular shape. And if you can look real close, and I know it's kind of tricky here, let me even zoom in a little bit more. Let's see if I can move this box over here. Here we go. You can kind of see here that this is a slightly higher elevation than is at the bottom of the valley. Okay, so it does kind of go up a little bit in elevation right around Turquoise Lake. So Turquoise Lake is lower. I want to say that says 9750 here, but that's really hard to see. And up here we have 9900, 9850. Okay, so it's a little higher around Turquoise Lake. So that's acting as a dam. Now as we work our way up the mountain, or up, we can notice here how the elevation actually changes now and gets higher. We're at 10,000, I don't know what there. I see this says 10,750. This says 11,500. So we're definitely working our way up in elevation. And considering that it's a glacier that begins in the mountains and works its way down the valley, we know that it's moving from the mountain downward. Also follow the direction of the river. I mean, the river is really going to show you where the flow began. So in this particular case, and let me zoom out, we can see that the river began kind of up in the mountains here. Possibly, even if we follow like this creek here, maybe even up here in this area. But in general, it's going to be flowing from west to east. And you can even say, northwest to southeast. But that's the general direction of flow here. So follow the river. The river is going to give you the path of the glacier. And realize that you also have to look at changes in elevation. So we have higher elevations over here and lower elevations down here. So rivers flow downhill. Next question here. Question 5, which letter arrow points to cirques? And then remember that a cirque is a semicircular shape that is almost a bowl that sits at the top of a mountain, and it's where the glacier originated. So you'd probably get like a lower depression at the top of the mountain, which would fill up with snow and ice. And after a time, it would get really heavy, and once it kind of got to be thick enough and tall enough, it would start to flow downhill. And that depression is still there. So if we look at the map, and we follow, say, the river, kind of go in the direction upwards this way. Here's one river that's going to flow all the way up here. And here we have a semicircular shape here and a semicircular shape here. Now, the question is, I knew that was the correct answer, was D. But if we look at our other options, the ones that might have looked similar are B. But B, there's a lake here, there's no lake here, and there's no lake here. So we know it can't be B because we would expect there to be a lake at the very top, a small little lake at the very top in the cirque is oftentimes a little lake up there. Okay, so D, and we have Lonesome Lake and St. Kevin Lake, which are at the top of the mountain. And let's see, the lakes inside cirques are called tarns, which we just talked about, so we'll skip that one. So which letter points to a hanging valley? Now, a hanging valley is where you're going to have like one branch of a glacier is going to come down and join another branch of a glacier at a lower elevation. So there's a kind of a cliff up here, and then you'll have some flow downhill, and it will join a glacier at a lower elevation. And typically, you know, if the glacier is melted, there'll be a waterfall there. So what we see here is, what do we have left? We could possibly be C, but I don't see any kind of rivers or anything coming from C. We've already done D. We know A defines the width of the valley, and E is our moraine. So then it must be B, and we can see a small river here. In this case, you can see a small river over here, although I think the actual hanging valley is this one right here. And then another one here with a small river coming from it. They don't have to have little rivers from it. It depends on if they're all dried up or not. But all of these areas kind of show a dip here, or in elevation. Because look at that, how that kind of comes down. In this case, it actually looks like it's kind of an area of higher elevation. Comes around here, and then it drops out very suddenly, so it would give you the impression that it's some sort of an area that's, you know, very high in elevation and kind of a cliff-like area. And then it says which letter points to the word I can't say. Every time I have to Google it. Aratus, I think. That's how you say that. But which letter points to it? So these would be areas where they're kind of like at the top of cirques. And it's like I guess, right above the cirque, the highest point of elevation. And that would be C here, that's pointing kind of to this ridge here and to this ridge right here. Kind of the top of this peak. Okay, and finally, the last question is name a peak that is a horn. A horn is going to be something that is the highest area and elevation around it. You have one right here at Galena Mountain. It's got 4 sides, notice, instead of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That makes it a horn. Here's an Arites. Telling you. Some word. I can't say some words. And number 10, we talked about that being a moraine, and I kind of already mentioned the formation of that earlier. So just think about how it acts as a dam, how it's kind of damming up the flow of that meltwater from the glacier. All right, tough stuff, guys. I know we kind of went through all the answers here on the tutorial, which is totally fine. If you didn't do well on this portfolio, I would encourage you to go back and correct your mistakes and resubmit it to me through the Dropbox, or you can email me and let me know that you're going to resubmit it, and I will reset the Dropbox for you. Hopefully that'll help you out a lot. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, and yeah, I will be here through Thursday. So if you have any questions, make sure you get in touch with me before the end of the day on Thursday. Talk to you all later.